Tracy S. Reading several articles this week that I should be adding some aquarium salt to my freshwater aquariums at each water change. I have never done that. Should I be? Do you? No, I don't. In general, I don't think you need to add salt to a tank unless there's special circumstance. So what does salt do? Couple of things. One of the main things it does is it makes it easier for the fish to reach osmotic homeostasis. There was this test that was done with perch that I found recently, where they took some perch and in one tank, they put the perch in fresh water. And in the other tank, they put the fish in brackish water. And then they didn't feed either tank for 3 weeks. They measured the weight of the perch in the fresh water and they measured the weight of the perch in the brackish water. And the fish in the brackish water had lost 20% less weight than the fish in the fresh water. Why? What happened? Well, a freshwater fish is constantly fighting to keep the freshwater from invading its tissue. Because a freshwater fish, its insides, its blood, its tissue is salty and it's surrounded by fresh water. So that fresh water is constantly trying to invade the fish. And it takes that fish a lot of energy to repel that fresh water and keep it from invading its system. That's called osmoregulation. It's trying to keep that fresh water out. Now, how much energy is used? Well, enough that if you're surrounded by brackish water, you burn 20% less body weight than you would otherwise. I asked a panel at the Aquarium Veterinarian Conference a couple years ago how much energy freshwater fish spend to try to osmoregulate, and they told me 14% of their energy is spent on trying to fight osmotic pressure, basically. I've read a lot of studies on this. Some said 1 to 2% is used. Some said like 20 to 30%. One study said like 60%. So there's a lot of disagreement in here. Probably depends on the species, probably depends on lots of things. And the one that was using 60%, I bet that was set up in some funky lab conditions. I doubt that was like in any kind of natural situation at all. Something very foreign to the fish had to have happened. But that study about the perch, I think, highlights the issue. When we ship fish, we ship them in water that we've put salt in. We put 5 grams per liter, 5 parts per thousand, because we want the fish to be able to conserve its energy. Instead of using its energy in that stressful time of when it's being transported to our customers, instead of using its energy to osmoregulate, we want it to be able to use that energy to stay healthy, to keep its immune system going. So that's one reason to use salt. We also use it when we get fish in, when we import fish and bring new fish in. Same reason. And an additional reason is when fish excrete ammonia, they need sodium. Sodium's part of that process. Not for every fish, but for a lot of fish. There's different pathways that fish use to do this, but there are a lot of studies done that show that sodium is an important part of that fish's process to get rid of ammonia. And they do that through their gills, by the way. That's why I did that. They're excreting the ammonia out of their gills through diffusion. So we want the fish to not have to spend as much energy osmoregulating when it's undergoing a stressful situation. We want the fish to be able to easily excrete ammonia so it doesn't build up in their tissues and damage their tissues. So we use salt in those two circumstances. The other reason we use salt sometimes is for medication. And usually when we're doing that, we're using it in pretty high concentrations. And often we're doing it as a temporary dip. We're just taking the fish in a net, putting them in a very high concentration of salt for a limited amount of time, and then removing them. So that works on certain parasites. There are some things that salt can treat kind of as a medicine. It's one good way that we get rid of anchorworms. In fact, it's our favorite way to get rid of anchorworms. We've tried copper, we've tried Dimilin X, we've tried all kinds of ways. We like to use the salt. A couple things to be aware of. Salt will kill your plants. If you just dump a bunch of salt in your tank and you have this pile of salt in the bottom, you're going to create hypersaline zones, which will kill your fish and other things. Don't do that. Pre-dissolve the salt and then put it in your tank. That's the easiest way to do it. Or what we do is we take a net, hang it at the top, put the salt in the net, and then it gradually diffuses. And we put that over a flow source, so that's all kind of being diffused around. That's my thoughts on it, but I don't think if you have a healthy tank, you're not landing new fish as an importer or trying to medicate fish, then, and your fish are not brackish water fish, then I'm not sure why you'd want to put salt with every water change.